I worked the night shift as a hospital security officer for just under 3 years before I quit. People always assumed the job was dangerous because of violent patients or the occasional intoxicated visitor. But honestly, most nights were painfully quiet. The emergency room stayed busy until around midnight. Then everything settled into a rhythm. Nurses lowered their voices. Cleaning crews moved slowly through the halls. Machines beeped in distant rooms. The vending machine near the elevators became the loudest thing in the building. I actually liked those hours. This happened in late November of 2022, during one of the coldest weeks we'd had in years. The hospital sat just outside a small town in northern Pennsylvania, surrounded by trees that looked black after sunset. By 6 in the evening, it already felt like midnight outside. My shift started at 7 p.m. Like every night, I checked every exterior door, signed the security log, grabbed a cup of burnt coffee from the staff lounge, and started my rounds. There were only 4 security officers covering the entire building. One stayed in the emergency department, one monitored the cameras, the other 2 of us walked patrols. By 1 a.m., the place was almost silent. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. Room 312. The door was slightly open. Nothing unusual about that, except the room had been empty for nearly a week. The floor nurses kept it locked because maintenance had been replacing ceiling panels after a pipe leak. I pushed the door open. Nobody inside. The lights were off except for the hallway glow spilling across the floor. The bed was stripped. Plastic covered half the ceiling. Everything looked exactly the way maintenance had left it. Still, the room felt occupied. Not haunted, just used. Like someone had stepped out only seconds before. I checked the bathroom, nothing. Locked the door again and continued walking. I didn't think much about it. Hospitals play tricks on your brain, and especially at night. Around 2:15 a.m., dispatch radioed me. "Can you check 3rd floor east? Nurse says someone keeps walking past the medication room." I took the stairs. The elevator was slow. When I reached the floor, Jessica, the charge nurse, met me near the desk. She looked irritated more than scared. "You just missed him." "Who?" "I don't know. Tall guy, gray hoodie." "Visitor?" She shook her head. "No visitor badge. I thought maybe family." "What direction?" She pointed toward the rehabilitation wing. I walked every hallway, nothing. Every patient room was occupied except 312. The rehab gym was locked. Supply closets secured. No signs of anyone. I came back. Jessica frowned. "I swear someone was here." I believed she'd seen someone. Hospitals never completely locked down. People wandered. Visitors ignored visiting hours all the time. I filed a note and moved on. At 3:07 a.m., something happened that still bothers me more than anything else. The emergency entrance buzzer sounded. Not the ambulance bay, the public entrance. I looked at the monitor. One man, standing perfectly still, mid-30s maybe, gray hoodie, hands in pockets, head lowered. I unlocked the outer door remotely. Standard procedure. By the time I walked from security to the entrance, less than 20 seconds, he was gone. Not walking away. Gone. The parking lot stretched almost 300 feet, empty, no vehicles leaving. Fresh snow covered everything, no footprints. I actually walked outside. The air stung my face. Nothing. Just tire tracks from an ambulance that had arrived earlier. I checked every camera. The footage showed him standing there. Then, the screen glitched for maybe half a second. Static. When it returned, the entrance was empty. No walking, no running, nothing. Our camera technician blamed old wiring the next morning. I accepted that explanation, mostly because I wanted to. A week passed, nothing happened. Then came Saturday, the busiest night of the month. 3 ambulance arrivals within 20 minutes. A car accident, chest pains, a broken leg, chaos. Around midnight, one of the paramedics waved me over. "You guys expecting psych transport?" "No." "Thought I saw somebody wandering outside loading dock." I checked immediately. Nobody there. But behind the dumpsters, I found fresh footprints. Only one set. They came from the woods. Stopped beside the loading dock door. Then, turned around. No second set leading away. I stared at them for a long time. Snow wasn't deep enough to hide anything. No drift, no wind, just one trail. There should have been another, unless whoever made them walked backward perfectly. I convinced myself I was missing something. Maybe maintenance, maybe delivery driver, anything. That same night, around 2:40 a.m., room 312 alarmed. Every patient room had an emergency call button, even empty ones. Maintenance hadn't disconnected that room yet. The nurse station panel flashed. Room 312, call. Jessica looked at me. You've got to be kidding. We walked together. The hallway felt unusually warm. She unlocked the room. Nobody. The call button beside the bed hung untouched. Jessica reset it. Immediately, it activated again. Neither of us spoke. She unplugged the panel completely. Problem solved. Or so we thought. As we walked out, the bathroom light turned on by itself. Jessica whispered, "Probably faulty wiring." I nodded. Neither of us went back inside. After that, everyone joked about 312. Hospital staff cope with weird things using humor. That's just how it is. But people quietly stopped volunteering for third-floor patrols, especially after 2 a.m. Christmas came. Then January. The incidents became less frequent. Then one snowy Friday changed everything. Around 4:10 in the morning, dispatch called me urgently. Possible unauthorized person on pediatric floor. I ran upstairs. Pediatrics sat directly above the rehab wing, normally locked, parents only. When I arrived, every hallway was empty. The pediatric nurse met me near the playroom. He walked right past us. Who? Gray hoodie. Again. She pointed towards stairwell C. I opened it immediately. Cold air hit me. Someone had propped open the roof access door. That wasn't supposed to happen. I climbed. The rooftop was covered in fresh snow. Nobody there. No footprints except mine. The city stretched below. Orange streetlights. Silent neighborhoods. Frozen parking lots. Then, I noticed something. Across the roof, near the opposite edge, a folding chair, facing away from the hospital. Nobody ever used the roof. Maintenance confirmed later that nobody knew why the chair was there. I walked over. The snow around it was untouched, except one set of footprints approached the chair. None left. Again. Exactly like behind the loading dock. That finally got under my skin. Not because it couldn't be explained, because every explanation felt worse than the last. Maybe someone had been living somewhere inside the building. Maybe somebody knew every blind spot. Maybe someone wanted us to notice. The hospital reviewed weeks of security footage. Nothing useful, just occasional glimpses. Gray hoodie, always the same height, always alone, never entering, never leaving, just appearing. Eventually, administrators assumed it was camera errors mixed with confirmation bias. People expected to see him, so they did. Life returned to normal. I transferred to day shift, mostly because nights no longer felt routine. Months later, I bumped into Jessica at a grocery store. We talked for a while. Before leaving, she asked, "You heard what happened?" "No. They renovated third floor." "So?" "They found a backpack inside a maintenance wall. Old?" She nodded slowly. "Contained clothes. Gray hoodie. Nothing else. No ID, no wallet, no fingerprints they could identify. The wall hadn't been opened in decades. Police investigated. They never announced any conclusions. I don't know what they found after that. Maybe nothing. Maybe they figured it out and never told us. Hospitals keep plenty of things quiet. I still think about that public entrance camera, about those footprints, about room 312. Not because I believe anything impossible happened. I don't. There has to be a logical explanation. There always is. But every logical explanation I've come up with creates even more questions than answers. I left hospital security not long afterward. These days I work in warehouse logistics, regular hours, concrete floors, forklifts, no silent hallways, no empty patient rooms. Sometimes though, when I'm working late and someone in a gray hoodie walks past the loading docks, I catch myself watching a little longer than I should, just to make sure they keep walking. Because the only thing that ever truly frightened me wasn't seeing someone where they shouldn't have been. It was turning the corner 20 seconds later and finding absolutely nowhere they could have gone. It started on the last Friday before winter break. I was 19, halfway through my first year at college, and like most students, I wasn't thinking about grades anymore. Everyone was counting down the hours until finals were over and they could go home. I had one last exam, engineering drawing. The professor let us leave early after collecting our papers, but instead of heading straight to my apartment, I stayed behind to finish a group project that was due after the holidays. There were 4 of us on the team. By 6 in the evening, 3 had already left. That left just me. I didn't mind. The architecture building was usually quiet after classes ended, and I actually concentrated better without people talking every 5 seconds. Outside, it had started snowing. Not heavily, just enough to make the campus look empty. From the 3rd floor classroom windows, I could see the parking lot slowly disappearing under a thin white layer. My car sat alone in the far corner. The only other vehicle nearby was an old white maintenance van parked beside the loading dock. I remembered thinking it was strange because maintenance usually finished before 5. I figured someone had forgotten it. I put my headphones back on and kept working. Around 6:40 p.m., I heard 3 loud knocks, not on my classroom door. Somewhere farther down the hallway, 3 slow, even knocks. I looked up. Silence. Then I went back to my laptop. A minute later, 3 more knocks. Same rhythm, this time closer. I pulled one earbud out. The hallway lights buzzed softly outside the glass panel beside the door. Nothing moved. I stood up and stepped outside. The hallway stretched in both directions. Empty. The classrooms were locked. The vending machines near the stairwell hummed quietly. No voices, no footsteps, nothing. I shrugged and figured another student was messing around somewhere below me. Old buildings carried sound in weird ways. I went back inside. At exactly 7:02 p.m., my phone vibrated. It was a message from one of my teammates. "Still there?" "Yeah. Leave before they lock the building." "I thought they closed at 10. "Not during break week." I checked the college website. He was right. The building closed at 7. I packed my bag immediately. When I opened the classroom door, the hallway lights were off. Only the emergency lights remained. Everything had turned a dull orange. I laughed to myself. Someone must have started the automatic shutdown. I headed toward the stairs. The stairwell door wouldn't open. I pushed harder. Nothing. Locked. I tried the elevator. Out of service. Now I was annoyed. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. The campus Wi-Fi had disappeared too. That had never happened before. I walked toward the opposite stairwell. Halfway there, I noticed something I was sure hadn't been there earlier. A folding chair, positioned in the middle of the hallway, facing my classroom, just sitting there. I stared at it. I knew every classroom on that floor. There hadn't been a chair in the hallway all evening. I walked past it without touching it. The second stairwell was locked too. I started calling campus security anyway. The call wouldn't connect. I tried again. Nothing. Then, 3 knocks, this time directly above me. The ceiling. Slow, even, heavy enough to make me stop walking. The building only had 1 more floor. Faculty offices. Nobody should have been up there. I told myself it was heating pipes. Buildings made noise. Old buildings made lots of noise. Still, I walked faster. The faculty hallway was connected through another door. Maybe someone was still working upstairs. The door opened. The offices were dark, every single one. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Then I heard footsteps. Not running, walking, slowly, above me again. Only, there wasn't another floor. I realized that almost immediately. Roof. Nothing else. The footsteps stopped. So did I. The silence felt wrong. Not quiet. Heavy, like waiting. Then, a door slammed somewhere behind me. hard enough to echo through the building. I turned instantly. The hallway was empty. But one office door, the last one, was open. It hadn't been before. I knew that because I'd looked down the hallway when I walked in. I actually argued with myself. Go look. Don't look. It's probably security. It's probably wind. I walked toward it anyway. The office lights were off. Only the hallway glow reached inside. Desk, bookshelves, computer. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed the window. It overlooked the parking lot. My car was still there, but the white maintenance van was parked beside it. I froze. I knew it hadn't been there. The parking lot was huge. There was no reason for someone to move it next to the only other vehicle. I watched for movement, nothing. Then, the headlights turned on, no engine, just the lights. They stayed on for maybe 5 seconds, then shut off again. I backed away from the window. My heartbeat had become loud enough that I could hear it. I decided I wasn't staying another minute. I ran back toward the main hallway. The folding chair was gone. I stopped, completely. I looked behind me, ahead of me, side to side. Gone. There wasn't anywhere it could have been moved without me hearing it scrape across the tile floor. I hurried to the main entrance. Locked. I started banging on the glass. No one outside. Campus looked abandoned. Snow covered almost everything now. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks. Directly behind me. Not loud, gentle. I spun around. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Then, my phone buzzed. 1 bar of signal, a voicemail notification. Time received, 7:11 p.m. I hadn't gotten a call, just a voicemail. I played it, static. Then, 3 knocks. Exactly the same rhythm I'd been hearing all evening. The message ended. No voice, no breathing, just knocks. I finally reached campus security by forcing my phone against the front window until it caught enough signal. It took them 11 minutes to arrive, longest 11 minutes of my life. When they unlocked the doors, I walked outside without saying much. The first thing I noticed, the white van was gone. I asked the officer if maintenance had left. He looked confused. There wasn't a maintenance vehicle here tonight. I pointed toward the parking lot. I saw it. He shook his head. We would have seen it on camera. The next week after break, I asked facilities about it anyway. One of the supervisors frowned. We retired the last white maintenance van 2 years ago. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Months later, curiosity got the better of me. I requested security footage from that night through the campus safety office. Most of it was normal. Students leaving, lights shutting off, snow falling. But the camera covering the 3rd floor hallway froze for nearly 43 minutes, exactly the amount of time I'd been trapped upstairs. When the video resumed, it showed me standing alone near the front entrance, staring down the empty hallway, perfectly still, for almost 3 minutes. I don't remember doing that. I remember walking, running, checking doors, looking out windows. But according to the footage, I barely moved. To this day, I still have that voicemail saved. I've played it for friends. Most people say it's just pipes or interference. Maybe they're right. I hope they are. But every December, around finals week, I get the urge to listen to it again. I never make it all the way through, because somewhere after the 3rd knock, if you turn the volume all the way up, it almost sounds like someone quietly trying the handle of a classroom door. And every single time I hear it, I remember that when security finally let me out. They asked me one question I still can't answer. Who were you talking to in there? I told them I hadn't spoken to anyone. One of the officers looked back at the hallway and said, "That's strange. We could have sworn there were 2 voices." I never believed people when they said a place could feel wrong. A house was just a house. A neighborhood was just a neighborhood. Every strange noise had a source. Every shadow looked normal once you got close enough. At least that's what I believed until the spring of 2024. By then, I'd been delivering groceries for almost 2 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while I figured out what I wanted to do next. Most of my deliveries were easy. Drive, drop the bags, take a photo, move on. This one should have been no different. It was a Tuesday in early April. It had rained most of the afternoon, leaving everything soaked. The roads were shiny, the trees dripped constantly, and low clouds hung over everything like dirty gray blankets. Around 7:45 p.m., I accepted one last delivery before heading home. The address was unfamiliar. A small house at the end of a gravel road about 15 minutes outside town. The order wasn't unusual. Milk, bread, soup, coffee, dog food, paper towels. Nothing expensive, nothing strange. The navigation estimated 23 minutes. I figured I'd be home before 9. The paved road eventually turned into gravel, then dirt. The farther I drove, the weaker my phone signal became. 1 bar, then none. I wasn't worried. The GPS had already loaded the route. The road followed a narrow creek for nearly 2 miles before ending in a tiny clearing. There were only 2 houses, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the right matched my delivery address. Its porch light was on. The house across the creek was completely dark. Not abandoned, just dark. I grabbed the groceries and walked up the porch steps. Before I reached the door, it opened. A woman in her 30s smiled politely. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept well in days. "Thank you," she said quietly. I handed her the bags. She glanced past me toward the other house, then asked something that caught me off guard. "You didn't stop over there first, or did you?" I looked behind me. "No." She nodded once. "Good." I waited for an explanation. None came. She thanked me again and shut the door. That should have been the end of it. I walked back toward my car. As I reached the driver's door, I heard what sounded like someone tapping on glass. 3 slow taps. I turned. The woman was gone. Her curtains were closed. The tapping came again, not from her house, from the dark one across the creek. I couldn't actually see anyone, just one upstairs window reflecting the cloudy evening sky. Tap, tap, tap. I stood there longer than I should have. Eventually, I laughed at myself. Probably a branch, probably rainwater. I got in my car and left. The next afternoon, I noticed something odd while reviewing my completed deliveries. That address was gone, not canceled. Gone, no payment, no receipt, nothing. Customer support couldn't find it either. They insisted my last delivery that night had been to a neighborhood 10 miles away. I figured the app had glitched. Technology failed all the time. I forgot about it until 3 weeks later. Same area, different customer. Only this time, the GPS routed me down the same dirt road. I recognized the creek immediately. The same 2 houses, only the house on the right looked abandoned. The porch light was gone, windows boarded, tall weeds surrounded the porch. It looked like nobody had lived there for years. I parked anyway. Maybe I had the wrong address. The app showed house 118. The mailbox clearly read 118. I checked the order. Correct. I walked closer. The front steps had collapsed. There was no way anyone lived there. I called the customer, straight to voicemail. Then I noticed tire tracks, fresh, leading past both houses. The dirt road didn't end there after all. It continued into the woods, barely visible. Curiosity got the better of me. I drove another 100 yards. The road curved around the creek, then ended. Nothing. No third house, no driveway, just forest. As I turned around, I looked back toward the abandoned house. Someone stood on the porch. A man, dark jacket, hands in his pockets, too far away to make out his face. I blinked. He was still there. I reached for my phone. No signal. When I looked back, the porch was empty. I left immediately. That night, I searched county property records. House 118 existed. The last listed owner had died 5 years earlier. No one had purchased it since. The neighboring house wasn't listed at all. No record, no tax information, nothing. I convinced myself I'd made some mistake. Maybe there had been another road, another delivery. Memory isn't perfect. Months passed. Summer arrived. Then one Saturday morning, I stopped at a gas station about 20 miles from that area. While paying, I noticed a bulletin board covered with local notices. Lost dogs, lawn services, Community events. One faded photograph caught my attention. It showed two houses beside a creek. The same two. The headline read, "Road closed permanently." The notice was dated 5 years earlier. I asked the cashier about it. He looked over my shoulder. "Oh, that old place? What happened?" "Bridge washed out." "What bridge?" He frowned. "The one over the creek." I stared at him. There wasn't a bridge. "There had to be," he shrugged. "Otherwise, nobody could have reached the second house." I didn't answer, because he was right. The woman had lived across the creek. I had walked straight to her porch. I had carried groceries. But now, looking back, I couldn't remember crossing any bridge at all. Not once. That realization bothered me more than anything else. I drove back there one last time, just to prove to myself I'd forgotten. The county had blocked the road with concrete barriers. A sign warned against entering. I parked anyway and walked the remaining distance. The creek was wider than I remembered, too wide to step across. The abandoned house still stood on the near side. The other side was empty. No house, no foundation, nothing, only trees. I walked up and down the creek for nearly half an hour, looking for signs of another building. Broken concrete, old pipes, anything. There was nothing, just wet leaves and the sound of moving water. As I turned to leave, I heard a dog bark. One bark, close, then another, coming from across the creek. I looked up. No dog, no house, nothing. Then I noticed something lying near the water's edge. A dented metal can, the exact brand of coffee I'd delivered that rainy Tuesday. It was old, rusting, half buried in the mud. I picked it up. The expiration date had passed 3 years earlier. I set it back down and walked away. Fast. I've never accepted another delivery outside city limits after dark. Maybe everything had a simple explanation. Maybe I drove to the wrong place. Maybe I mixed up 2 different roads in my memory. Maybe the app really had glitched. But every now and then, usually when it's raining, I think about that woman asking me one strange question. "You didn't stop over there first, did you?" At the time, I thought she was talking about the empty house across the creek. Now I'm not so sure, because when I reviewed the dashcam footage from that night, the recording ended the moment I turned onto the dirt road. It started again exactly 38 minutes later, as my car pulled back onto the highway. There should have been 23 minutes of driving, a delivery, a return trip. Instead, there was nothing. Just a missing block of time, and one final detail I've never been able to explain. When my camera resumed recording, there were muddy footprints on the inside of my passenger side floor mat. I lived alone. No one had been in my car, and I never opened the passenger door that night.